Looking back, it's hard not to marvel at how drastically life can shift from the path you thought was certain. My early days were simple, raised in a humble home where loyalty, love, and trust were the cornerstones of our family. My parents, though not without flaws, were the epitome of a devoted couple, and I always envisioned following in their footsteps. I admired their steadfast commitment, never once imagining that my life could take such a wildly different turn. As I grew older, I clung to those lessons, convinced that if I played my cards right, I'd achieve the same stability and happiness they had. I worked hard, pursued my passions, and met someone who seemed to share my ideals. But life has a funny way of testing you in ways you never expect, and the perfect future I had pictured slowly began to unravel. One cool November morning, I found myself in the driveway, tending to my 2008 Camaro, a car that, to me, symbolized the freedom and control I longed for in a life that felt increasingly chaotic. While some people found solace in hobbies like golf, I found peace in the ritual of caring for my car. As I meticulously cleaned the interior, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that something was about to change, that time was slipping through my fingers faster than I could grasp. Just as I was finishing up, an unexpected interruption shattered my moment of peace. A car came screeching to a stop in front of my house, driven erratically. I squinted, trying to make out the driver. It was Gail, my mother-in-law. She stumbled out of the car, tears streaming down her face, and I knew instantly that something was terribly wrong. Leaving the car parked awkwardly in the street, she rushed toward me, her face a mess of tears, and collapsed into my arms, sobbing uncontrollably. "Come on, Gail," I said softly. "Let's go inside, and you can tell me what's happened." I guided her into the kitchen, where I sat her down at the table. "He's such a fool," she cried, her voice shaking. "Would you like something to drink, Gail?" I offered gently. "Do you have any tea?" she asked, her voice quivering through the tears. I nodded, setting about making her a cup of tea. Before heading back to the kitchen, I took her car keys and moved the car off the street and into the driveway. I then called my wife, Brenda, asking her to come downstairs. When I returned, I handed Gail the tea, along with some sugar, milk, and a slice of chocolate cake she had brought over the day before. "Thank you, Ronnie," Gail sobbed. "Brenda, you're lucky to have him. You'll probably never have to worry about your husband cheating on you." Her words hit me like a freight train. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Ed, Brenda's dad, cheating on Gail? The thought seemed impossible. As I started to leave the room, Gail grabbed my hand. "Ronnie, your family too. I need to talk to you," she said. "Okay, Gail, what's going on?" I asked, bracing myself. "Why do men cheat?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. "Mom, some say men are just wired that way, but that doesn't make it right," Brenda chimed in. "Maybe Dad has his weaknesses, but that doesn't excuse anything." "I'm not talking about all men," Gail replied, her voice gaining strength. "I'm talking about your father, who vowed to be faithful and keeps breaking that promise." "Mom, you know Dad loves you," Brenda interrupted. "But sometimes he just struggles with his nature. You have to try to work through it. He vowed to put our marriage above everything," Gail said, her voice trembling. Before we could continue, the doorbell rang, breaking the tension. "I'll get it," I said, grateful for the brief reprieve. Opening the door, I found Ed standing there, looking utterly defeated. "Hey, Ron," he said quietly. "Is Gail here?" "They're in the living room," I replied. He walked in, and I returned to washing my car, trying to focus on the task and clear my mind. As I worked, I felt two arms wrap around my waist, and a lock of auburn hair fell over my shoulder. "Ronnie, do you love me?" Brenda asked, her voice soft. "Of course I do," I replied, turning to face her. "But we've got a family crisis on our hands. I need your help. Can you grill some steaks and try to calm Mom down? They might actually divorce this time." "Has this happened before?" I asked, surprised. "Several times," Brenda sighed. "They love each other, but they keep going through this. Dad seems serious about getting help now, though. He knows he can't fix this on his own." "Maybe your mom should have drawn the line sooner," I suggested. "What do you mean?" Brenda asked, her brow furrowed. "If I were her, I would have left him the first time he cheated," I said. He needs to face the consequences of his actions, or he'll never truly change. Brenda stared at me, shocked, her lips trembling as she fought back tears. I could see she was on the verge of breaking down. I pulled her close, whispering, "I'll do anything for you, Brenda. Ronnie, it's easy for you to say. Your parents were perfect, so you've never had to deal with this. I don't want my parents to split up or be alone when we have kids. I want them to have grandparents who love them. I want us all to be a big, happy family, without worrying about which parent to invite to events because the other won't come," she said, her voice cracking. "Okay, honey," I replied softly. "I'll help. I'll cook the steaks, and you can send your dad out to talk to me while you talk to your mom. Maybe when the food's ready, we can all talk together on the deck." I didn't agree with what I was doing, but I loved Brenda and understood her desire to keep her family together. We all want our families to stay intact, even when our parents fall short. So I spent the afternoon talking with my father-in-law. We chatted about my Camaro, sports, and grilling techniques. He tried to come across as wise, but I knew he was bluffing, especially when he rambled on about a car that didn't even exist. Eventually, I cut to the chase. "So, what's really going on with you and Gail?" I asked. It looked like I had just punched him. He nearly broke down, saying, "I didn't mean to hurt her. She wasn't supposed to find out." I thought to myself, how typical. If you didn't want to hurt her, why do the one thing that's guaranteed to cause pain? I stayed calm, though I was boiling inside. I imagined him betraying Brenda, and the thought made me want to throw him off my property. Gail deserved better. She should leave him. I couldn't help but think about my dad and Uncle Mike, both stand-up guys who would have treated a woman like Gail with the respect she deserved. But here was this fool, Ed, trying to save face by claiming he needed to reconnect with the church. I had to suppress a laugh at the absurdity of it all. Later, Gail and Brenda joined us on the deck for dinner. Ed put on his best act, playing the part of the remorseful husband, but it was obvious he was just trying to save his own skin yet again. After a while, I excused myself, went inside, and laughed so hard I cried. The whole situation was so ridiculous, I couldn't help it. When I returned, Brenda gave me a puzzled look, while Ed sat there like he was waiting to be canonized. Gail, however, was genuinely hurting, torn between cutting him out of her life or trying to salvage what little was left. She was looking to us to help her make the right decision. "So, Ronnie, do you think counseling could help?" Gail asked, her eyes pleading. I glanced at Ed, who gave me a slight nod, and then at Brenda, who also nodded, clearly hoping to save her parents' marriage. Finally, I looked into Gail's eyes, which were filled with sincerity. "Counseling can help you work through problems and uncover things in your relationship that you might otherwise overlook," I said. It wasn't a lie. I'd heard it on some therapy show, so there was some truth to it. Gail nodded slowly. "Okay, we'll give it a try." She reached for Ed's hand and managed a small smile. Brenda looked at me, and I felt a pang of guilt. I was doing this for her, but it didn't sit right with me. I excused myself again, saying I needed to show Ed something in the garage. Once we were there, I grabbed him by the throat and slammed him against the wall. "You piece of trash," I hissed. "This is the last time I lie to cover for your cheating ass. If you do this again, you'll have more to worry about than just a divorce. Got it?" Ed quickly nodded, and I let him go. We returned to the kitchen, where I forced a smile and acted like everything was fine, but Ed was visibly shaken. Later that night, we managed to enjoy ourselves, trying to push the drama to the back of our minds. But just over a month later, 3 days after Christmas, we found ourselves standing in the morgue, staring at Ed's lifeless body. The attendant pulled back the sheet, revealing the shell of a man who had once been full of life. Brenda collapsed in tears, and Gail turned away, unable to look. I stood there in shock, my mind racing with the most absurd thoughts. The attendant asked if we could identify the body, and both Gail and Brenda nodded. "I'm sorry for your loss," he said, attempting a comforting smile that came off as eerie instead. We led Brenda out of the morgue, where a detective was waiting. "So, the deceased was your husband?" the detective asked Gail. She nodded, squeezing my hand. "When he didn't come home last night, I got worried," she said. "Ed always called if he was going to be late." The detective offered us coffee, which I declined after catching a glimpse of the ancient, grimy coffee maker. Brenda, still in shock, asked, "What happened to him?" I can't reveal the details of the investigation just yet, the detective began, but it'll be in the papers soon. Your husband, your father, young lady, was found at the Sleep Easy Motel on Sycamore Avenue. A hysterical woman was with him. Her husband caught them together, kicked in the door, and, well, he kept the last bullet for himself. You should go back to the morgue and say your goodbyes, the detective added gently. I'll ask the coroner to be gentle with his face. That won't be necessary, Gail replied coldly. No problem, the detective said, backing off. We have clear evidence. The security tape shows everything. The guy kicking in the door, your husband already gone, and no signs of anyone else moving around. Detective, Gail said firmly, I mean it's not necessary. I don't care where he's buried. Judy stood up, and I followed. Brenda looked at her mother, then back at the detective and said, she's upset. He just nodded. As soon as we left the detective's office, Gail broke down, sobbing into my shoulder as I drove them home. Throughout the day, people came by to offer their condolences. Our neighbor, Tanya, stopped by with some baked goods. How are you holding up? She asked. I shrugged. It's okay, honey. We're friends, she said softly. I know you spent a lot of time with Ed. I used to see him chatting with you while you worked on your Camaro. Tanya, I whispered. I couldn't stand that guy. He was a serial cheater. It was just in his nature. Gail deserved better. She laughed lightly. But Gail loved him. He was her first everything. That's why she kept forgiving him. Without him, she'd be lost. But Tanya was wrong. Over the weeks, Gail's anger toward Ed only grew. She even refused to attend his funeral at first, but I convinced her to go, if only for Brenda's sake. Eventually, Brenda grew angry with both of us, especially when I refused to speak at the funeral. I couldn't think of a single good thing to say about Ed, and even his best friend struggled with the eulogy. Ed was Ed, they said. You had to know him. After the funeral, Gail became more involved in our lives, but certain things, like watching TV shows where a husband cheated, would set her off. Brenda and I often discussed how we could help her. Brenda seemed to move on from her father's death fairly quickly, and life resumed its usual rhythm. About 3 months later, we hosted a gathering, inviting every eligible man we could think of for Gail. At 43, she looked more like Brenda's sister than her mother, but Gail didn't know how to flirt or mingle. She'd only ever been with Ed, who had swept her off her feet when she was 18. We knew it would take time for her to adjust, so we planned to keep hosting these gatherings, hoping she would eventually find someone who truly appreciated her. As I was tidying up after the party, I noticed Brenda's phone sitting on the counter, a new message lighting up the screen. Assuming it was from her mom, I picked it up, only to freeze in place. Brenda had been texting another man. As I scrolled through the messages, the sickening realization hit me. She was seeing someone else. My heart sank, and I stood there, feeling as if my entire world was crumbling around me. How had I not seen this coming? Brenda and I spent so much time together. When did she even have the time for this? Then it struck me. Brenda had always been quick to defend her father, even when he was caught cheating. She'd insist it was just in his nature. Maybe she was more like him than I'd ever realized. After all, you can't fight nature, right? Perhaps they both thought I'd react like Gail. Just accept it and move on. Gail had loved Ed despite everything, maybe even more because of it. Perhaps her anger wasn't just about the cheating, but because Ed's death had robbed her of the chance to forgive him one more time. As I stood there, lost in thought, Brenda entered the room. Someone's slacking on the cleaning, she teased, smiling at me. But it's okay. I've done enough for both of us. Let me just finish up here, and then I'll get to work on the breaks. I replied, watching her expression shift to disappointment and frustration. How long will it take? She asked, her voice tinged with impatience. All night, if I do them all. I answered, not really caring how long it took. Can we do it tomorrow? Maybe tomorrow should be my turn, she suggested, her words dripping with innuendo. Her suggestion irritated me. Did she really think I'd want to be with her after she'd been with someone else? Honey, I'd love it if you didn't do the breaks tonight and came to bed with me, she insisted, trying to coax me. And I'd love it if you let me do the breaks after grilling and entertaining at a party for your mom. I shot back, the bitterness in my voice unmistakable. If you really loved me, you'd do them later, she challenged, her tone sharp. If you really loved me, You let me do them now? I retorted, staring her down. What's wrong with you, Ronnie? She asked, her voice rising in frustration. You usually want me all day, but today you're distant. Do you know how many women here tell me how lucky I am to have you? Even Tanya said what she'd do to you if I weren't around. Well, tomorrow's another day, I muttered, turning away from her, feeling disgusted. Okay, she called after me, trying to salvage the moment, but I knew exactly what was going on. She was desperate for sex tonight, because she had no plans for us tomorrow. She'd be too tired after spending time with someone else. Maybe I'm jumping to conclusions, I thought, recalling an episode of a TV show where a jealous husband mistakenly believed his wife was cheating. He wrecked what he thought was her lover's car, only to discover it was a surprise gift for him. The wife had divorced him over it. The next morning, I went to work as usual. Brenda made me breakfast, and I tried to act normal. I'm sorry, I love you, Brenda, I said, trying to keep my emotions in check. What's gotten into you this morning? She asked, smiling at me, her eyes gleaming with affection. I just wanted you to know how much I care about you, I said, feeling a pang of guilt, as if I were trying to prevent her from doing something we'd both regret. At work, I threw myself into my tasks, trying to block out everything else. By 9:30, I was ahead of schedule and decided to leave early. As I was heading out, Brenda called. Hi, honey, she said, her voice cheerful. Want to have lunch together? I'd love to, I replied, feeling a flicker of hope. Home or a restaurant? But then she said, hold on, I have another call, and my heart sank. A few seconds later, she came back. Can we do lunch tomorrow? Mom needs to talk. Sure, no problem, I said, hanging up, my suspicions flaring up again. I called Gail. How's your day going? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Better now that I've heard from my favorite son-in-law, she replied, her voice warm. Your only son-in-law, I reminded her, forcing a chuckle. But still my favorite, she laughed. Have you talked to Brenda today? She's going to ask you something soon. Just don't set me up with one of your friends again, she joked. I'm not ready to date. No, just a dinner for the three of us, I said, trying to keep the conversation light. Oh, that sounds nice. I'll pretend to be surprised when she calls, Gail replied. Bye, Gail. Have a good day, I said, ending the call. The call had delayed me by 10 minutes, and it dawned on me that Brenda had only called earlier to make sure I was at work. Maybe she'd picked up a few tricks from her father, who'd gotten caught cheating numerous times. I drove straight to the motel and quickly spotted Brenda's Ford Focus in the parking lot. I knew exactly which room to go to. I saw a cleaning lady nearby and slipped her $50 to quietly open the door. As soon as I stepped inside, I saw him, a guy scrambling to turn around. Without thinking, I crossed the room, grabbed him by the collar, and slammed him onto the hard floor. Ronnie, what are you doing? Brenda screamed, trying to pull me away. I stood up, brushing her hands off me as if they were dirt. Don't ever touch me again, I said, my voice cold as ice. I called my secretary, told her I was sick and that I wouldn't be in for the rest of the day or the next. Then I dialed 911 to report an assault. Brenda sat silently on the bed, trying to say something, but I kept telling her to shut up. Ronnie, when we get home, she began. We don't have a home, I interrupted, my words like a final nail in the coffin. I'm not living with a cheater. Go to your mother's. The police arrived, and I stepped outside to meet them. I'm the one who called, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. You don't look hurt, one of the officers remarked, sizing me up. Not me, him. I pointed at the guy, who was still unconscious on the floor. They cuffed me and put me in the cruiser as the ambulance arrived. I barely spoke, too numb to explain, as they took me to the station. I was booked on charges of assault, though they didn't have anything solid, just suspicions. And I wasn't about to spill my guts to make their job easier. Sitting in a grimy holding cell with a handful of other guys, I felt like I was in a fog. It's one thing to suspect your spouse is cheating, but it's a whole different beast to catch them in the act. People change, and sometimes that means drifting apart. Other times, resentment festers, turning divorce into a war zone. But for me, it wasn't about anger. I loved Brenda with everything I had, and up until I stepped into that motel room, I thought we'd grow old together. Seeing her with Rick, an overweight, balding man, was like being hit with a sledgehammer. I couldn't make sense of it. If she was into someone like him, why did she chase after me so hard? As I tried to untangle the mess in my head, a burly cop called my name. "Ron Harris," he shouted. I stood up, feeling the stares of the other men, and approached the bars. The officer unlocked the door, flanked by 2 other cops. "Are you planning to shoot me?" I asked, half joking, half serious. "No, genius, you've been bailed out," he grunted. "By who?" I asked, more confused than ever. He gave me a deadpan look. "Does it really matter?" he replied. "What are the charges? Who bailed me out? How long have I been here?" I demanded, my frustration growing. "Buddy, you've got too many questions. Do you want out or not?" He snapped back, clearly irritated. "Officer," I said, doing my best to stay calm, "I know you deal with all kinds of people, but this is my first time in jail. If you could just answer a couple of questions, I'd appreciate it." The other officers exchanged glances, and the first one sighed, giving in. "Fine. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and you've been here nearly 2 hours. I leaned in, lowering my voice. "I caught my wife with our neighbor at a motel. I know I didn't handle it well, but I don't want to see either of them again. If Brenda bailed me out, I'd rather stay here." "Too bad, kid," he said with a shrug. "It's her. She was crying the whole time. But don't worry. Some lawyer and the guy she was with talked to the prosecutor. They're not pressing charges. Still, I'd keep my distance if I were you. You'll be here for a couple more days to cool off, then you can bail yourself out." I sat back down, noticing the curious glances from the other inmates. They were probably wondering why I wasn't rushing to leave. Brenda's guilt was driving her to try and bail me out, but I wanted nothing to do with her. My thoughts drifted to how I'd once pushed Gail to forgive Ed, yet here I was, unable to extend the same mercy to Brenda. Just then, the cop returned. "Harris, there's someone else here to see you. Not your wife, her sister Gail. She's waiting in the interrogation room. Want to see her?" "Yeah," I said, my mind racing. He cuffed me and led me to a small room with a thick pane of bulletproof glass. I sat down, staring at Gail on the other side. "Ronnie," she said softly, concern etched on her face. "What happened?" "Brenda said you attacked your neighbor and refused to let her bail you out." "Gail," I said, barely able to get the words out. "She cheated on me." Her face twisted in disgust. "With him? That's revolting. But why? From what she's told me, you've always been—" Before she could finish, a tall man in a wrinkled suit knocked on the glass. "Excuse me," he said, looking at me. "Are you Ron Harris?" I nodded, feeling a mix of irritation and exhaustion. "Can you join me in the conference room across the hall when you're done here?" he asked. The officers uncuffed me. "He's not a threat." "Why the cuffs?" the man asked, his tone impatient. "He's here for assault," the cop replied. "But to be honest, I would have done the same thing." "Ronnie, don't do anything reckless," Gail warned, her voice filled with worry. "I know you're hurting." "I'll call you tomorrow," I said, trying to reassure her. "If I get out today, I'll send Brenda to stay with you." I walked into the conference room, where Brenda, Rick, and 2 other men were waiting. Brenda looked like she'd been crying for hours, and Rick was limping, trying to approach me. "Stay back," I shouted, the anger surging back. "If any of you come near me, I'm going straight back to my cell." One of the men at the table stood up and introduced himself. "Mr. Harris, I'm Frank Drummond, the district attorney. This is Mr. Daniels, your neighbor's attorney. We've got a proposal that could make this whole mess go away." "What are you talking about, Frank?" I asked, not in the mood for games. Drummond nodded at Daniels. "Charlie, why don't you explain?" Daniels, acting like we were old buddies, started talking. "Ron, this situation is unfortunate. The emotional toll is heavy, no doubt. But there's no reason for you to walk away with a criminal record. These charges, assault, battery, intent to cause serious harm, are severe." "I'm not worried," I said coolly. "With my qualifications, my career isn't in jeopardy." Daniels cleared his throat nervously. "No need for an innocent person to suffer because things got out of hand." "Innocent?" I said, my voice rising. "Who here is innocent? I'm the one who was betrayed." At that moment, Brenda broke down, her sobs filling the room. "I thought I had a wife I could love forever," I said, my voice shaking with emotion. "I was wrong. I thought I had a neighbor I could trust. Wrong again." "Ronnie, what about Tanya?" Rick asked, his voice trembling. She's done nothing wrong. Why drag her into this? Tanya deserves to know the truth, I said, my tone ice cold. She deserves better than a cheater. She'll be just fine without you, Rick. Maybe we'll even get through this together. No, please don't tell her, Rick pleaded, his face pale with fear. Daniels quickly jumped in. Here's the deal. My client won't press charges if you agree to let this go. Let it go. I repeated, the words tasting bitter. I won't just forget. I'll take this to court. When they hear why I did what I did, they'll understand. I'll name him in my divorce and testify against him in Tanya's. The four of them huddled together, whispering urgently before turning back to me. What do you want? They asked, desperation clear in their eyes. Nothing, I said firmly. I won't tell Tanya or sue you, but you'll testify in the divorce, drop the charges, and stay 50 feet away from me, my home, and my things. Deal, Rick muttered, trying to muster a smile. Good. I know I'm about 50 feet from her right now, but that starts once I leave the building, right? I added, my voice tinged with a bitterness I couldn't hide. I don't care what you do. She's not my problem anymore, Rick muttered under his breath. Can I go now? I asked, eager to get as far away from this situation as possible. No, Brenda shouted, her voice trembling with desperation. We're not doing this, Ronnie. I turned to the district attorney, Willis. Can you walk me to the counter so I can get my things? I need my wallet for a cab. I could hear Brenda's sobs echoing behind me as I walked out, but I didn't turn back. When I got home, Tanya, our neighbor, was outside. She waved me over with a friendly smile. Where have you been, stranger? She asked, her tone lighthearted. My husband got into a bad situation and got roughed up. Poor guy, I said, trying to sound casual, though my mind was elsewhere. It's tough, Ronnie. I'm sorry, but I've had a rough day too. We'll catch up later, she said sympathetically. Send your wife over if you can. Tanya, I don't have a wife anymore, I replied, my voice flat. The shock on her face was clear, but I didn't stick around to explain. Inside, Brenda's cell phone rang, but I let it go to voicemail. After the fifth call, it went silent, only to ring again. This time, it was Gail's number. I picked up, ready to tell her to stop calling. Gail, can you? I started, but she cut me off. Honey, you have to, she began, but I hung up before she could finish. Half an hour later, the phone rang again. It was Gail. I answered reluctantly. Ronnie, are you there? She asked, her voice soft. Raplia, Malasia tunavi. I had to give Brenda some tea with sleeping pills. She's out of control, crying and blaming everyone for ruining her life, she said, sounding equally exhausted. I believe it, I said, sadness creeping into my voice. But there are many people to blame. Oh, she blames Rick, says he tricked her into that deal. She also blames you for your behavior. How am I doing? I asked, half joking, half serious. Ronnie, you're not acting like yourself, Gail said gently. And that's exactly what Brenda expected. Does it ever get better? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. No, she admitted, her voice heavy with experience. It gets worse. You start doubting yourself, wondering what's wrong with you, why she chose someone else. You compare yourself to others, and every time she's late or not where she's supposed to be, you imagine the worst. It never goes away, and you never fully trust again. Gail, can I tell you something? I asked, feeling the weight of my own guilt. Of course we're family, she replied, her tone reassuring. I lied to you. I confessed. When we were trying to convince you to take Ed back and go to counseling, I didn't really believe in it. I thought you should just overlook his cheating. But I said what Brenda wanted because I love her. I know, Ronnie, Gail said, her voice kind. You're a terrible liar. Your mouth says one thing, but your eyes say another. Ed was a fool, I said, feeling a surge of anger. No one he cheated with was worth a fraction of you. Maybe it's in their blood, she replied, her voice tinged with bitterness. I can't believe Brenda let that man near her, let alone. She cut herself off, clearly struggling with her own emotions. Gail, I'm sorry, but I'm not like you. I can't keep taking her back just to have her do it again, I said, my voice firm. Maybe she got it from her father, I added. She always said you can't fight nature. I hope that's not true, Gail said softly. You could train wild animals. Maybe people can change too. But it's rare. It takes a lot of effort, Gail. I replied, the heaviness in my chest growing. Cheaters will cheat. So what does that mean for us? She asked quietly, almost as if she didn't want to hear the answer. We have two choices, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. We can move on and start fresh, knowing we're just good people who love the wrong ones. You have a beautiful daughter to show for it. I have nothing, so my life feels wasted. Or we can stay and hope they change. But then we're just fools for putting up with it. You deserve someone worthy of you, and I need to find someone who is too. Who are you talking to, Mom? Brenda asked, suddenly appearing behind Gail. Is it Ronnie? Does he want to talk to me yet? Did you tell him how sorry I am? Bye, Gail, I said abruptly. Looks like you've got your hands full. In the days that followed, I talked to Gail a lot. Tanya and some neighbors brought food and offered to chat, but I wasn't in the mood. I hired a lawyer and started preparing a fair divorce agreement. I wanted to split everything equally, even though it wasn't fair to me. I didn't want things to get ugly, but I was ready to go to court if it came to that. My lawyer got Rick to spill everything. It had been going on for over 6 months, and Rick believed he wasn't even the first. I asked Gail if I could come over to talk. When I arrived, she opened the door, and I hugged her tightly. Brenda rushed up to me, her eyes red from crying. Ronnie, I've missed you so much, she said, her voice trembling. Brenda, I'm here to make this easier, I said, pulling back. I didn't want a stranger handing you divorce papers, so I brought them myself. No, Ronnie, she pleaded, her voice breaking. I'll stop. It won't happen again. You have to give me another chance. I'm going to see a counselor. Brenda, that won't help, I said, my voice calm but resolute. This isn't the first time. My lawyer questioned Rick. We know everything. You've been with him for over 6 months, and I doubt he was the first. How could you look me in the eye? It was just sex, she said, desperation in her voice. You and I are so much more than that. You and I are nothing now, I replied, feeling a finality I hadn't felt before. All that's left is a gold ring, and that means nothing when the vows are broken. Ronnie, please, she begged, tears streaming down her face. No, Brenda, I said, shaking my head. I'm not living like this. You're being unfair, she whined, her voice growing louder. You're tearing my heart out. You love me. Damn it, Brenda, shut up, Gail shouted, finally snapping. You're just like your father. You act like the world revolves around you and what you want. I forgave your father repeatedly, and maybe you think that's how it should be, but Ronnie isn't me. You're a grown woman, so act like it. You had the perfect marriage, and you ruined it. Now get over it. Ronnie's hurting too. He's been so depressed. I can't believe you did this to someone who loves you so much, Gail said, her voice shaking with a mix of anger and sorrow. But then again, your father did the same to me. I'm glad he's out of my life now. I only wish I had been free sooner. But Mom, I'm struggling too, Brenda pleaded, her voice full of desperation. I know I messed up, and I'm sorry. I'm hurting just as much. Brenda, you brought this on yourself, Gail replied, her tone firm. As much as I care about you, maybe you deserve what you're going through. I know, Brenda said, her voice dropping to a whisper. But I don't think it's bad enough for a divorce. That's not your call to make, Gail countered. Marriage is a partnership, Brenda. Maybe Ronnie doesn't want to be your partner anymore. Stop saying that, Mom, Brenda cried out, turning to me with wide, pleading eyes. Ronnie, haven't I been a good wife? I've taken care of the house, cooked your meals, and given you everything you could want. Why can't you focus on all the good I've done instead of this one mistake? I feel lost without you. I can't stop crying. My life feels like it's falling apart. You can make this better for both of us. Just forgive me just this once. I promise it won't happen again. I didn't say a word. I simply walked to the door, pausing before I left. Brenda, get a lawyer, I said coldly. I want this over with so I can move on. As I drove home, I spotted Tanya again, standing on her porch. I didn't feel like talking, but she called out, Hey, Ronnie, hold up. I sighed as she walked across the yard toward me. She was wearing old denim shorts and a sweat-stained t-shirt, looking like she'd just come from a long day of yard work. I need to talk to you about something, she said, her tone more serious than usual. Tanya wasn't as slender as Brenda or Gail, but without the weight of my marriage dragging me down, I noticed her more than before. "Why are you staring at me like that?" she asked, a mix of curiosity and amusement in her voice. "Sorry," I mumbled, quickly looking away. "I shouldn't have." "It's okay," she said, brushing it off. "I just wanted to let you know that Rick and I are here for you. If you need anything, or just someone to talk to, we're here." Rick's still pretty shaken up after everything, and talking might help him too. You know, helping others can sometimes help us feel better. "But that's not really what I meant," she added with a small smile. "I know you're a good guy, and you're not the type to cross any lines." I gave her a weak smile, thinking about telling her the truth about Rick, but I realized it would only hurt her more. Whatever Rick was doing, it was up to him to deal with it. "Ronnie, I wanted to tell you about a cruise," she continued, trying to change the subject. "One of our clients is putting together a singles cruise, and there are still spots open. It's 10 days of sun and fun, maybe a good way to clear your head. Who knows, you might even meet someone new." "I'll think about it, Tanya," I said, though I wasn't sure I was ready for that. "But I don't think I should be dating anyone until the divorce is final." "Whatever Brenda did, it's her loss," Tanya said, her voice full of sympathy. "You deserve better, Ronnie. Let me know if you change your mind about the cruise." I tried to make things right with Brenda, but it was too late. My lawyer handled the divorce, and I did my best to move forward. I talked to my boss about transferring to another office and explained the situation. A few days later, he arranged for me to transfer to our Phoenix branch, which was looking for new engineers. The idea of warm weather and a fresh start was appealing, so I decided to go for it. I'd leave everything behind, but that's what starting over meant to me. I told Gail about my decision to leave, and though she was upset, she understood. She was dealing with her own pain, losing Ed, and now seeing her daughter's marriage fall apart. She mentioned she was thinking about moving to New York to be closer to her sister and mother, and our conversation seemed to push her toward making that move. I asked her not to tell Brenda about my plans. "Don't worry, honey," Gail said, shaking her head. "Brenda's obsessed with you. She's been following you around like a shadow, terrified you'll move on. She was livid when she saw you talking to Tanya on the porch, called her all kinds of names and cried for hours. She's convinced you're going to fall for Tanya and tell her everything, and then you two will end up together." "That's not so far-fetched," I said, a hint of irony in my voice. "True," Gail said, giving me a knowing look. "Ronnie, you really cared for my daughter. I could see it, but I'm glad you didn't try to get back with her. I love her, but I love you too. We both know what Brenda is like. At least when this is all over, you'll have a friend in Arizona, and I'll have someone in New York. Promise me we'll stay in touch." "I don't have much choice," I said, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. "I've only really loved 2 people in my life, and one of them doesn't love me back. You're all I've got left." I appreciated Gail's honesty about Brenda following me, so I started paying more attention to my surroundings. One night, I decided to see a movie and spotted Brenda's car in the parking lot. She was clearly watching me. I decided to have a bit of fun. I pretended to be waiting for someone, bought my ticket through an app, and then called Gail to let her know Brenda was tailing me. As I headed into the theater, Brenda stormed out of her car, trying to catch up to me. But I slipped inside, got my ticket, and disappeared into the crowd. With 15 different movies playing, she had no idea which one I was watching. 2 hours later, I walked out pretending to say goodbye to someone who wasn't there. Brenda rushed up, her face red with frustration. "Cut the act, Ronnie," she snapped. "You went to the movies alone. I've been following you since you left the house." "Get used to it, Brenda," I said calmly. "I won't always be alone. Sooner or later, I'll find someone I want to be with." "You've already found her, you idiot," Brenda said, her voice rising. "She looks just like me. You just need to get over my one little mistake." I laughed and walked away, realizing Gail had been right all along. I trusted her not to reveal my plans to Brenda, but I still needed to get out of town without Brenda finding out where I was going. The solution came from an unexpected source. The next day, there was a knock at my back door. When I opened it, Rick was standing there, looking even more out of place than usual. Tanya was on their porch, watching with a smirk. "I didn't want to come," Rick muttered, glancing nervously at Tanya, who gave him an encouraging wave. "Come in," I said, making sure Tanya could hear. Rick shuffled inside, still fidgeting. "I did what you asked," he said, his voice shaky. And I'm grateful you didn't tell Tanya, but honestly, if she hadn't pushed me to come, I'd have called you anyway. We got a problem. We don't have anything in common, I replied, my tone flat. True, Rick agreed, but we both care about Tanya, and we both have issues with Brenda. She's threatening to tell Tanya everything unless I help her get you back. She says it's not fair for one of us to keep our marriage if we've both been unfaithful. She's blackmailing me into spying on you and pressuring you to take her back. I stared at him, realizing I could turn this to my advantage. Go along with it, I said after a moment. Rick blinked, confused. What do you mean? Does Brenda know about the singles cruise Tanya organized for me? I asked, already forming a plan. I don't think so, he replied, shaking his head. Good, I said. Tell her about the cruise. It'll keep her busy for a while, especially if you suggest there's a chance we might have to talk since we'll be stuck on the ship together. Rick looked at me, hesitant, then nodded. All right, I'll do it. I'll do whatever it takes to keep Tanya from finding out. Good. You can go now, I said, showing him the door. The next day, Tanya called me. Ronnie, Brenda somehow found out about the cruise. Should I book her on the wrong one or put her in a room close to yours? She asked, half joking but clearly curious. Tanya, let her pay full price, I said with a grin. You're doing me a bigger favor than you know. Are you two back together? She asked, her tone growing serious. Not a chance, I replied. But why do you ask? What are you so mad about? She pressed. She cheated on me, Tanya, I said quietly, the anger still raw. I walked in and caught them. There was no misunderstanding. We're done. I just need to get away. In the days that followed, I prepared for the move, looking at houses, contacting moving companies, and finalizing things with the Phoenix office. I still talked to Gail daily, but the saddest part before I left was when she moved to New York. I stopped by to say goodbye, and to my surprise, Brenda was there. She had been so busy getting ready for the cruise that she hadn't had time to follow me around. She smiled as she opened the door. I miss you so much, Ronnie, she said softly, trying to sound sweet. I ignored her and went straight to Gail, who hugged me tightly. I wish you'd hug your wife like that, Brenda muttered, a mix of bitterness and desperation in her voice. That's not my mom, Ronnie. It's probably for the best that Gail's moving to New York, I said, giving Brenda a sidelong glance. You seem confused about who really matters to you. Gail and I shared a knowing laugh. Brenda was taking Gail to the airport, so I said my goodbyes and promised to keep in touch with Gail. I wish you'd call me, Brenda said quietly, as if she still believed things could go back to how they were. You know this divorce is pointless. By the time we get to court, you'll forget why you wanted it in the first place. I saw that you withdrew a large amount of money from our account, but I didn't say anything because I did the same. Funny how that works out, huh? I just walked away, leaving her with her delusions. She was acting like we were about to go on a romantic getaway, not realizing we'd be on the same cruise, but in entirely different places. The thought of me being with someone else on that ship hadn't even crossed her mind. 3 days later, I was ready to leave. Tanya had everything set up for the cruise. Just before the ship departed, I called Brenda. Brenda, I won't be home for about 10 days, I told her. If you need anything about the divorce, talk to my lawyer. Thanks for letting me know, she said with a cheerfulness that almost made me laugh. Maybe when you get back, you'll realize you don't want a divorce. Maybe you'll remember how much we mean to each other. Not likely, I said, unable to hold back a chuckle. She laughed too, but there was a desperation in her voice. Is it so hard to admit you still love me, Ronnie? She asked. No, it's not hard, I said, feeling a strange mix of emotions. I do still love you. I just wish you'd loved me enough to make me your only one. I do, you idiot, she said, her voice breaking. Life without you isn't worth it. Yes, I screwed up, but it wasn't about love. Something drew me to Rick, and I don't even understand it myself. Maybe we can figure it out in therapy. If you believe in old sayings, I said, have you heard the one about how you can't fight nature? She paused, confused, as I hung up. 6 hours later, the ship was at sea, almost out of cellular range, when my phone rang. I looked at the screen and smiled, watching the waves roll by. I imagined Brenda peering out of her small porthole, while I enjoyed the view from a spacious window. Where the hell are you? She screamed as soon as I picked up. I've searched the whole damn ship, and you're not on it. Who said I was? I laughed. How can we work this out if we don't spend time together? She yelled. You won't let me come home. You don't touch me. And you barely talk to me. I'm going insane. I love you, Ronnie. Okay, Brenda, I said calmly. After the cruise, you can come home. But we won't be sharing a bed. I'll do whatever it takes to get back in your bed and in your heart, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. I love you, Ronnie. The call went silent, and I couldn't help but laugh as I crossed into another state. I decided to call the one person who understood me. Hey, Gail, I said when she picked up. Ronnie, she squealed, her voice lighting up my day. It's been forever since you called. Almost 4 hours. I teased, grinning. I think I made a mistake, she said, her tone turning serious. Do you have any idea what it's like living with two stuck-up old women? I burst out laughing. Gail always knew how to make me smile. Stop lying, Gail. Everyone loves being around you. Ronnie, do you even know what time it is? She asked, her voice softening. They say time heals all wounds. I replied, watching the endless horizon, feeling the first real sense of peace I'd had in months. They're wrong, she replied seriously. I forgot how much I don't get along with my sister. She and Mom are so alike now that I just don't fit in. I chuckled. Do you check your rearview mirror to make sure you're not being followed? She asked. It's hard to keep up with a truck when you're on a ship, I said, making her laugh. I won't ask how you managed to get on the ship without her, she said, amused. Remember that old laundry detergent commercial? Let's just say I had my own ancient Chinese secret. I joked. I love that commercial, she exclaimed. Guess I'd better go make Mom's tapioca. Drive safe, honey. The next afternoon, I arrived in Phoenix. The first thing I did was unload my Mustang into the garage, feeling relieved that it wouldn't have to endure another cold winter. Even though the desert sun could be harsh, it felt like a trade I was willing to make. Over the next few days, I settled into my new place. The house was beautiful, but it didn't feel like home, just a space to exist in. The day before I was supposed to start my new job, my cell phone rang. Without checking the caller ID, I answered it. Where are you? Brenda hissed, her voice filled with anger. Why is all your stuff gone? You said I could come home, and now the house is empty. You're home? Aren't you? Isn't that what you wanted? You're home, Brenda. Isn't that what you wanted? I replied, keeping my voice calm. You know that's not what I meant, she snapped. I don't want an empty house. This is almost as bad as the divorce you keep pushing for. Don't worry about the divorce, I said coolly. Without solid proof, my lawyer says I'm out of luck. So, the divorce over your affair with Rick is off. Good, she said, her tone softening with relief. Now, where are you? I'll come to you. I filed again, I said, my voice firm. This time, I'm not going to be so nice. She laughed, but it was hollow. Does it matter why you filed? Call your lawyer, Brenda. He already has the papers. Not only will I get the divorce, but I'll also leave you with almost nothing. And by the way, I'm changing my number tomorrow. An hour later, she called back, her voice subdued. Okay, Ronnie, you win. I signed the papers. How did you get the video? I hired a private investigator to take my place on the cruise, I explained. I knew you'd give in to temptation if I wasn't around. I set you free. I never even watched the video. Thanks for proving me right. I can change, she pleaded, her voice trembling. I don't think you can, I replied bluntly. And honestly, you shouldn't have to. You're free now to do whatever you want. I'm free too, to find someone who will love me the way I need. Ronnie, you don't understand, she cried. It's me. My father loved my mother more than anything, but he still cheated. It didn't mean anything. It was just sex. They were in love, and that's why she couldn't let him go. You and I are the same. You'll miss me, and when you do, I'll be here. But I'll make you regret putting me through this. 3 weeks later, I was still calling Gail daily. One day, I noticed a sadness in her voice. Okay, Gail, what's wrong? I asked, concerned. I'm fine, she said, trying to sound upbeat. Just a little out of sorts. Gail, don't shut me out, I urged. Tell me what's really bothering you. Moving here was a mistake, she admitted, her voice heavy with regret. I spent most of the money from selling the house on taxes and improvements, and now I'm stuck. I only have Ed's pension, which covers my expenses, but it's not enough to move again or buy another place. I thought living with family would be great, but I guess I just didn't want to be alone after 20 years of living with someone. At least you still have family, I said, trying to be supportive. Oh no, she replied quickly. That's not an option. You have no idea what Brenda's been up to since you left her. No, I don't, I said, a little wary. But I wasn't talking about her. Why don't you come live with me? I've got plenty of space, and I'd love to have you here. Ronnie, are you crazy? She asked, surprised. I can't live with you. You're my daughter's ex-husband. Not anymore, I pointed out. Come visit, and if you don't like it, you can always go back to New York. Okay, she agreed after a pause. How about a week's visit? I want to make sure you're okay. I've been checking in on Brenda at your old house. Well, do you even recognize it? Gail came to stay with me for a week, and she ended up enjoying herself so much that she didn't want to leave. We did everything together, sightseeing, shopping, and turning my house into a real home. By the end of the week, the thought of her leaving was weighing on me. The morning she was supposed to go, she made me breakfast and asked why I looked so down. Our week's over, I said, feeling a lump in my throat. I'm going to miss you. Can you come back soon? No, she said gently. And honestly, Ronnie, I don't think you really want me to. Gail, you're my best friend, I said earnestly. Of course, I want you to come back. Don't you want to? No, she smiled. Because if I come back, it means I left and I don't want to. I smiled back and hugged her tightly. We both knew something was happening between us, but neither of us was ready to say it out loud. The next morning, she made me breakfast again. I can't send you to work on an empty stomach, she said with a wink. And I'm driving you to work today. I need the car to go shopping. Are you sure you don't want to drive the truck? I teased, holding out the keys to my Mustang. She stuck out her lower lip playfully and held out her hand. For some reason, it didn't bother me to let her drive my Mustang, something I'd never allowed Brenda to do. I handed her the keys, and her smile made my day. After breakfast, we drove to my office. I expected her to drop me off, but she came inside, looked around, and even met my secretary. Then she led me to my office. So, why haven't you slept with her yet? She teased, raising an eyebrow. She's not my type, I said, grinning. Gail laughed and promised to pick me up after work. That evening, we grilled steaks and watched the sunset together. I noticed that Gail hadn't just gone shopping. She'd added small, thoughtful touches around the house that made it feel warm and inviting, like a real home. Over the next few weeks, our relationship evolved gradually, but surely. We spent our evenings together, going on long drives, taking photos of the Arizona landscapes, catching the latest movies, or trying out new restaurants. But more than anything, we savored quiet nights in. I often suggested we go out because I was nervous about what might happen if we spent too much time alone together. About 5 months later, on Gail's birthday, I wanted to make it memorable. I bought her a beautiful diamond necklace and made reservations at an elegant restaurant. We had a wonderful dinner, and a violinist even serenaded us with happy birthday. When I gave her the necklace, her eyes sparkled with surprise, and she asked me to put it on for her. As I clasped it around her neck, she smiled and pointed behind me. I turned to see our waiter standing there with a knowing smile. I was just telling the gentleman that his wife is the most beautiful woman in the restaurant, the waiter said. You're absolutely right, I replied without missing a beat. Gail giggled. Ronnie, you should thank him or at least correct him. He thinks we're married. I couldn't agree with him more, I said, gazing into her eyes. That would imply I had something to do with your beauty, and I didn't correct him because I don't mind if people think we're married. Ready for dessert? She asked, her eyes twinkling. Sure, she said, smiling. But can we take it home and enjoy it there? Hearing her refer to it as home, instead of your house, made my heart swell. When we got back, it felt like the perfect ending to an incredible night. It was strange, but at that moment, I realized that at 30, I didn't need anything else to feel complete. When we got home, we made love, showered, and collapsed in a bed together. I love you, Gail, I said, holding her close. 5 months, she murmured, almost in disbelief. I can't believe we've been together for 5 months. We wouldn't have made it this far if we were the type to just jump in a bed with someone, I said. Maybe not, she laughed, but we're the kind of people who love deeply and hold on when it's real. The next evening, when I got home, Gail had dinner ready and something else on her mind. I wanted to make sure last night wasn't just a fluke, she teased. We had made a rule not to talk about Ed or Brenda. The past was behind us, and we focused solely on the future. We shared so many new experiences together that there wasn't any space left for the past. We did a lot of things for the first time, but we never talked about marriage. It just wasn't something we felt the need to discuss, even though everyone around us assumed it was inevitable. That was until the past came knocking at our door. Our mistake was moving Gail's belongings from New York to Phoenix. Brenda went looking for her mom, and her grandmother and aunt, unaware of our situation, gave her our address. That's when everything started to unravel. One Saturday, I went out to buy supplies for a barbecue. While I was gone, Brenda showed up on our porch. Gail had no choice but to let her in, hoping I'd be gone long enough to avoid any drama. But Brenda quickly realized that Gail wasn't living alone and that her housemate was likely a man. Gail confirmed it, and they agreed to meet for breakfast the next morning. Brenda drove off, but she got turned around and ended up driving past my car on her way out. Gail decided to hold off on telling me until we had some time to relax. As we were grilling and getting ready to unwind, we noticed someone peeking over our 6-foot fence. Brenda's eyes widened in shock, and she started shouting. We let her in, though I could feel the tension building. I can't believe this, Brenda screamed, her voice trembling with fury. Especially you, Mom? What would Dad say? Brenda, your father isn't here anymore, and neither is our marriage, I said calmly, trying to keep the situation from escalating. So what are you doing here? She demanded, her anger barely contained. I came to find my mother, she snapped. I was hoping she knew where you were. I need help. What kind of help? I asked, already sensing where this was going. I've lost almost all the money you left me, and I'm about to lose the house, she admitted, her voice breaking. I was hoping you'd give me another chance. I realized how stupid I was. I'm sorry, Brenda, but there's no chance, I said firmly. You can't fight nature. Yes, you can, she insisted, her desperation clear. If you want it badly enough, you can change. I swear I've changed. I wasn't talking about your nature, I replied, my tone even. I was talking about Gail's and mine. It's in our nature to fall in love and stay that way. We can't fight it, but since you're still family, we'll help with the house. Go home, and I'll transfer some money into your account. But you'll need to get a job. Why can't I stay here with you? She pleaded, her voice trembling. Brenda, just being around you reminds me of what happened, and it makes me angry all over again. That's why I left town in the first place. Do you want the money or not? Of course, she said, her shoulders sagging. Then she looked directly at Gail. You don't want me here, do you, Mom? You know that if I had a fair chance, you'd lose Ronnie. He only agrees with you because he thinks he loves you, but deep down he still loves me. He stays with you because you're safe, and he knows you won't hurt him like I did. Gail and I exchanged a knowing look before bursting into laughter. We'd already been through enough together that Brenda's words didn't faze us. I preferred Gail's genuine kindness over Brenda's self-centeredness, and Gail valued that I was committed to her. Brenda left the next morning, still angry that we hadn't let her stay, but it would have been a nightmare to live under the same roof. Gail and I were content with how things had turned out. We both wanted to be together, and in some way, we felt a bit guilty about Brenda's situation, but we stood by our decision. Later, we learned that Brenda had been sleeping around with several men in our old neighborhood, including some of our friends, which stirred up a lot of gossip. One morning, Tanya saw a couple of men leaving the house and confronted them. That's how she found out everything. When Tanya confronted Brenda, she was furious and told her she should be ashamed of herself for tarnishing the neighborhood's reputation by being involved with other women's husbands. Brenda and her accomplices told Tanya to mind her own business and suggested she keep a closer eye on her own husband. They insinuated that this was why I had divorced Brenda. Tanya then confronted Rick, who broke down and confessed to his infidelity. 2 days later, as Brenda was packing her suitcases, she felt a strange sense of dread. Just as she was about to call one of her lovers, she noticed Tanya sitting quietly in the dark. I always thought we were friends, Tanya said, tears welling up in her eyes. We are, a stunned Brenda replied. You had it all, Brenda. A beautiful home, a good life, and a husband who adored you. Why wasn't that enough? Tanya asked. I never thought he'd find out, Brenda admitted, her voice trembling. I love him, but I couldn't control myself. It's just something in me like my father. I guess you can't fight nature when that kind of desire takes over. Tanya nodded, her face grim. And then you shot her. Tanya called for emergency assistance and waited for the police. It was deemed a crime of passion, and Tanya was sentenced to 8 to 15 years. Rick vowed to wait for her and visit every week. After Brenda's tragic end, Gail and I decided to marry. We realized that we were all we had left. The media took an interest in our story, particularly because it's still unusual for a woman in her 40s to carry twins to full term. We didn't name them Brenda and Ed, sticking to our rule of leaving the past behind. Gail and I often visit Brenda's grave and talk to her. It's a sad and tragic thing when someone dies, and though we don't wish that fate on her, we both feel a sense of guilt. Both Ed and Brenda were victims of their own natures. It's almost poetic that Brenda couldn't learn from her father's mistakes and met the same tragic end. I suppose you really can't fight nature, and despite everything, Gail and I lived happily ever after.